Welcome to Candlesleep Tales, where stories burn slow and quiet, carrying you into worlds of silence and shadow. Tonight's tale is a journey into a haunted past, a cursed power, and the long road to redemption. If you enjoy immersive stories that unfold like smoke and echo in stillness, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. No one greeted strangers in Mar Hollow after the frost set in, not since the bandits made camp in the older woods and men began vanishing by torchlight. Yet this man came with neither horse nor cart, cloaked in a ragged coat of boiled leather, hood drawn low. His boots were black with marsh water, his hands mottled with cold. When he passed the broken mill wheel, no hound barked, even the wind stilled. He carried a sword, not ceremonial, not polished. A weapon meant for violence, bound in a sheath patched with stitched hide. And when the alder branches behind him stirred with the sudden sound of hooves and snarling men, he turned without fear. No lantern to shield his eyes, no words to curse or plead. Just silence and a long breath that steamed from his mouth like a smith's bellows. There were 5 of them, bandits who had grown too bold with winter pressing close. One spat and called him wanderer. Another raised an axe. They closed in, expecting the easy kill that hunger and cold demanded. The villagers watched from dark windows. No one came to aid him. They had seen such things before. The first blow struck his shoulder, and he staggered. The second was blocked, steel shrieking against steel. And then something strange happened. The man exhaled again, a word under his breath, not a curse, not a prayer. The air around him shifted. The ground seemed to pulse. One bandit screamed and dropped his sword. Another fell back, clawing at his own face as if he saw fire where there was none. Only 2 remained when the man moved, swift as frost-cracking stone. His sword did not flash, it sank. Into collarbone, into gut, not cleanly, not like a knight might. These were the cuts of a butcher, swift and final. When it ended, there were no screams, only breath, only steam rising from broken bodies, and the man, leaning on his blade, coughing once into the crook of his elbow. Blood soaked the road. Yet not all of it was theirs. From beneath his sleeve, black droplets spilled, thick and glistening like ink. He wiped them away before the others could see, but one boy had crept close, peering from behind a fence post. His eyes went wide. "You're bleeding wrong," he whispered. The man said nothing. He turned and walked on. They did not offer him shelter, but he found it all the same. An abandoned shrine to some forgotten field spirit stood at the edge of the hollow, roof sagging but walls intact. He entered, closed the door, and knelt by the cold hearth. There, beneath cracked frescoes and rotting beams, he pulled the coat from his shoulders and unwrapped the cloth wound around his chest. The black blood still dripped, but slow now. Slow as sap from an old wound. From a pouch at his belt he drew a small charm bone or horn, etched with lines that no faith still claimed. He pressed it to the wound, and again that whisper, that same word. The charm glowed just faintly, then dimmed. The wound closed halfway. Not enough, never enough. He rested there, breathing ragged. His face, now unshrouded, bore no noble mark, no tattoo of old orders, just a man grown thin from miles and years. His eyes were too bright for a body so spent. As he leaned back and gazed at the rafters where bats were silently hanging, he murmured, but it was not the word of power he uttered. "Not yet," he said. His joints ached, his breath ran short. Each step left more of himself behind, a thread of warmth unwinding slowly into the cold. He did not ask for shelter, only pointed to the monastery on the hill when the ferryman asked his purpose. The man crossed himself and said nothing more. The monastery had once been called St. Balian's Watch, though no watchman stood now. It rose from the cliffside like a black tooth, windows gaping, the bell tower broken and hung with nests. A decade ago, plague had emptied it. Now, something else had moved in. He climbed alone, gripping the weathered stones as the path narrowed to a broken stair. Halfway up, he passed a body caught in bramble, headless, throat chewed through, armor torn. The wolves had not done this. No beast left sigils carved in bone. No natural thing drank the marrow dry. Inside, the nave was cold and stank of iron. Pews lay shattered. The altar cloth had been scorched. Against the far wall, a statue of the martyr queen had been split at the spine, her face melted down to a smear of grief. He stood among the ruin, listening. Beneath his feet he felt the pull of it, low, rhythmic, like breath. A pulse, faint but steady, echoing from below. They said something hunted there, a thing that wore the shape of a brother long dead. The last hunters who entered had not returned, save for a jawbone left beside the well. He found the well behind the refectory, overgrown with moss, and warded with old charms. Salt rings, broken rosaries, a child's shoe half buried in wax. He stepped over them and stared into the dark, then lit his last taper and dropped it in. It fell long, guttering as it went, until it found the surface of black water far below. He descended by rusted rung, sword strapped to his back, teeth clenched tight. The deeper he went, the louder the pulse became. It was not sound. It was inside him, in the meat behind his ribs. When the last rung gave way, he dropped the final 10 feet and landed in ankle-deep water. The tunnels ran outward like roots. Masons had carved them long ago for storage, and later for burial. Now they smelled of rot and ash. He moved slowly. Light faded. In the third chamber, he found the hunters. Their bodies were folded, limbs snapped, mouths open wide as if still screaming. Runes had been carved into their skin, not in ink but in heat. Branded, a warning or a rite. He did not speak. He did not touch. He pressed 2 fingers to the wall, and when he whispered the word again, the stone rippled beneath his hand. It did not guide him. It drew him. Deeper, always deeper. He came to a vault where roots hung from the ceiling like dead hair, and the floor rose in uneven stones. There it waited. Its shape was that of a man, but swollen, changed. Skin stretched thin over pulsing muscle. Eyes like coal wet with oil, a jaw that opened too wide. It turned when he entered, and smiled. Another thief of fire, it said. He raised his sword, no thief. The thing laughed. The sound cracked the stone. You carry it. I can taste it in your breath. It lunged. He met it halfway. Flesh struck steel. Teeth scraped iron. He fought like a man possessed, but he was not whole. The curse in his blood had thinned him. Twice he stumbled. Once it threw him across the vault. When he rose, blood gushed from his mouth. Real blood, red this time. And the black, always the black. He whispered. The word came slow. The mark on his chest burned. Time shifted, not the world, but his body. Everything slowed, every motion pulled through honey. The creature moved, but he was already behind it. His blade sank deep, not once, not twice. Again and again until the thing shuddered and split, collapsing in a gout of steaming bile. Its eyes burned as they dimmed. Its voice was almost gentle. You will become me. He stood swaying. His fingers trembled. The taste of ash coated his teeth. He climbed the well long past nightfall. The rungs beneath him trembled as he climbed, causing his legs to bleed and his heart to flutter like a struggling bird. Despite these pains, he managed to reach the top and collapse onto the stones. He remained there, gazing at the stars, until they completed their nocturnal journey across the sky. He had survived, but the price of his victory was not limited to his flesh. It had always been more than that. In Chapter 3, the land transitioned from flatlands to cliffs, which released copious amounts of salt into the sea. Not built-hewn, carved from pale stone that flaked beneath the wind, marked with centuries of brine. It rose like a wound left open to the air, doors split wide with rusted hinges yawning. They called it a manor, but no noble had lived there in 3 lifetimes. Only silence, only salt. And now, something else. He had taken the coin, because the girl was young and the father desperate. She had walked into the cliffs with a lantern and never returned. No trail, no body, only the tethered goat found near the salt spires, its throat opened with precision, blood drawn cleanly into a copper bowl left behind. That was 4 nights past. He entered without knocking. Wind howled behind him, sharp with brine. The door shut of its own accord. He did not flinch. Darkness met him, thick and clinging, though his eyes adjusted quickly. Salt encrusted the floors, the walls, even the beams overhead, veins of it, pulsing faintly, as if blood moved within. He did not speak. He did not draw steel. Not yet. The curse stirred in his chest, sensing the wrongness. It hung in the air like smoke, heavy with old rites and unfinished hunger. He followed it through the halls. There were no stairs. The house warped upon itself, halls bending inward, thresholds narrowing to bone-thin arches. Time moved strangely there. At moments his breath caught without reason. His limbs felt too heavy. His thoughts slowed. The curse offered him strength, pressed itself forward, eager to be called. He pushed it down. Not yet. Not here. The first signs were in the mirrors, cracks that bled, not silvered glass, real flesh or something close to it, stretched and splitting. When he passed, the reflections did not match his pace. They lingered, turned after him. One smiled when he did not. He found her on the 3rd level, though the house had no stairs. She sat in a room with no windows, lantern guttering at her feet. Her dress was stiff with salt. Her eyes were wide and empty. She did not see him at first. She was humming to herself, low and steady, a child's melody bent out of tune. When he touched her shoulder, she shuddered and blinked. Her mouth opened. Salts poured out. Something had made a vessel of her. He felt it then. The shape in the walls, the presence behind the grain of stone. Not a demon. Not fully. A ritual unfinished, fed by innocence and pain. Old, older than the faith still spoken. It pressed against the edges of the room, curious, hungry. He whispered the word. Only a sliver. A shard of the power buried in his blood. Enough to cut through the veil. The house screamed. Stone split. Mirrors shattered. Salt boiled. The girl shrieked once, then fell silent. The presence recoiled, writhing. It spoke in a voice that cracked and echoed, "You carry ruin in your breath." He did not answer. He did not look up. The light around him burned violet and white, the air turning brittle, almost sharp enough to flay. The girl convulsed. He held her down with one hand and touched her brow with the other. The mark beneath his collarbone seared against his chest. He could have opened the gate further. He could have let the full torrent come. It would have torn the house from its roots, peeled the skin from the cliffs, ended the thing that lingered there in a single burst. But it would have burned her too. And worse, it would have drawn attention. There were things that watched when he used too much, things not bound to earth. So he closed it. The light dimmed. The girl wept salt and blood, then fainted. When he carried her out, the house folded in on itself without sound. No collapse, no ruin, just absence. Where it had stood, only sand remained. He laid her on the grass above the cliffs where the dawn had just begun to pierce the grey. Her breath was thin but steady. She would live. He would not stay to explain. When the father came with his men, they found only the girl, and the signs of something unspeakable etched into the cliff face behind her. Far down the road, leaning against a twisted ash tree, the swordsman coughed black into his palm and wiped it away before it cooled. The charm at his throat flickered. His vision swam. He closed his eyes and whispered again, not the word of power, the word of refusal. Not yet. Chapter 4. The Book That Whispers. He came to the charred library at moonrise, walking the ash trail where old parchment had turned to dust, and stone steps still held the outline of men who once knelt in study. The fire had gutted the abbey 2 winters past, not wholly by accident. They had tried to cleanse something that could not be buried. What remained stood like ribs around a hollow chest, broken walls, half columns, and shelves blackened to bone. The man who waited among the ruins was no fighter. Bent-backed, hands inked to the knuckle, the scholar greeted him with a torch and a single phrase. "It still sings in the smoke." He did not ask what. He had already felt it. The song of burnt things. The pull of knowledge once bound and now free, sifting through the cold air like spores. The scholar led him past a collapsed dome into a vault half sunken into the ground. There, in a cradle of iron nails and resin-sealed stone, rested the book. No title, no script upon the spine, only a cover of grey leather, smooth as skin and damp to the touch. "It asked for you," the scholar said. "In dream." He did not touch it at first. The curse in his blood stirred violently. He could feel the word inside him recoil, as if the object would unmake it. But still he reached. Still he opened it. The pages did not hold words, not at first. Only lines, spirals and veined lattices, like the architecture of lungs or roots. They moved when he looked too long, and then a face took shape. His face. Not as he was, but as he had been, younger. Before the gauntness, before the black blood. Smiling. The book spoke, but not aloud, not in sound. A pressure behind his eyes, thoughts not his own forming fully, pressing outward like claws within a sack of skin. "You asked." We answered. He staggered back. The scholar did not react. He was still muttering prayers in a tongue no longer spoken by men. "You chose the hunger." He closed the book. "Why show me this?" he asked the scholar, voice like gravel. "Because it's not finished," the man replied. "You lit the fire, but the wick runs long. It will burn until you end it, or until it ends you." He left before the sun rose, carried the book wrapped in oilcloth and chain. Did not sleep that night, nor the one after. In a way he had always known, not the shape of the deal but the scent of it, how the curse never came unbidden, how the word tasted of his own voice, not a god's, how the first time he spoke it, he had not been afraid. In a field before the border, he buried the book, 6 feet down, no marker. But even as the soil filled in, he knew it would not be lost. He had brought it into the world, and such things do not go quietly. In the stillness of the night, as sleep enveloped him, a monolithic structure appeared. Towering and imposing, it was bone white, windowless, and defied the very clouds above. The warlock's ominous voice filled the silence, whispering, "You have not yet begun to pay." The gate hung open, untouched by siegecraft. The trees nearby bore strange fruit, shards of polished glass, tied with horsehair, spinning slowly in the wind. None of them showed a true reflection. The steward met him in silence. Pale, blinking too often, mouth bitten raw from nerves. He led the swordsman through deserted halls where the light bent strangely. Tapestries seemed to ripple. Statues turned when not watched. In the great hall, a mirror hung above the dais, veiled in black. It began with voices, the steward said, hands clasped as if in prayer. Then shadows, then copies. They looked like us, walked like us. But they were not. The swordsman said nothing. His eyes had already found the streaks of blood leading beneath the tapestries. They do not bleed, the steward whispered, but they remember. The curse stirred again, restless in his chest. He could feel the mirror thing in the castle still hunting. Something born not of glass, but of memory. It had fed on regret, shaped itself from the unspoken guilt of 100 men. Now it walked freely. He asked for the family chapel and was led down a stair slick with frost. There, he found what he sought. The cracked remains of a summoning glyph beneath the altar, traced in quicksilver. Someone had tried to scry the future. Instead, they had pulled something back. In the crypts, he found the boy. The Lord's son, no older than 12, sat among the dead, rocking slowly. His eyes were empty, his voice flat. "It wears his face," the boy said, "but it says things my father never said. It remembers what he never told anyone." The swordsman touched the boy's shoulder. "Where is it now?" "The ballroom. It likes the mirrors there." He went alone. The halls groaned around him. Walls blinked in the corners of his vision. His breath clouded the air, but not the glass. That was always the sign. Not what was shown, what was not. The ballroom doors were open. He stepped through. Every wall bore a mirror, and in each a different version of himself. Younger, older, smiling, screaming, dead. And one, only one, turned and walked out of the glass. It wore his shape perfectly. Even the weight in its shoulders, the tired slope of its brow. But its eyes held no heat, no pain, only hunger. They circled each other in silence. Then it spoke. "You could end this. Let it out. Let the fire speak. They would all fall." He did not answer. He moved. Steel met steel, blow for blow. But it knew his thoughts, his habits, his fears. It struck at memory. It whispered names. It bled nothing. He faltered. It seized his throat, leaned close. Its breath smelled of burning books. "You are not a man. You are a wick, and your fire is dying." He whispered the word. The backlash shattered every mirror. The false man screamed, folding in on itself, limbs distorting, voice fracturing into a chorus of lies. The curse burned through the air, searing the stone. But he held it in check, barely. The power bucked like a beast half loosed. He did not let it finish the work. Just enough to bind, to break the mirror's hold. Any more would have melted the bones from his own back. When it ended, only smoke remained. The steward found him kneeling, breath shallow, one eye red with burst vessels. The boy stood behind, silent, watching. "What are you?" the boy asked. He wiped black from his mouth. Someone who was warned and did not listen. Chapter 6. The Bridge at Harlot's Gate. The snow fell thick over the pass, muffling hoofbeats and memory alike. No roads reached this place now. Only an old bridge of iron and cedar stretched between the cliffs, narrow as a blade, sagging with age. He stood at its edge, one foot already black with frostbite, leaning heavy on his sword. The name had returned to him in sleep, a place he had crossed as a younger man, in another life. Then he had come at the head of a column, pennant raised, eyes bright with a cause that no longer bore meaning. Now, no flag marked his presence, only breath, only the cold. He crossed slowly, boards groaning beneath each step. Halfway across, wind caught his cloak and pulled. He paused to steady himself, and in the stillness heard a voice. "You were not always a butcher." He turned. A figure stood at the far end, cloaked in grey, face masked by a strip of linen. A monk, or something like it. Unarmed, barefoot. "What do you want?" the swordsman asked. "To remind you." They walked together to the far side. The figure led him to a hollow beneath the stone arch, where a fire burned low. Roots curled from the ceiling. The air smelled of pine and bone. "You still carry it?" the figure asked. He did not answer. The monk removed his mask. His face was lined, eyes sunken from long hunger, but something in the shape of his jaw stirred memory. "You rode under the same banner," the swordsman said, "years ago. You were with the scribes." "I was with the dead," the monk replied. "I saw what you asked for. I saw who gave it." Silence settled between them. Only the fire moved. "He told you there would be a price," the monk said. "You named your own." The swordsman looked away. The frost in his veins had begun to rise again. "You are dying, slowly, and not only in the body. Each time you call it, more of you stays gone. Then let me die." The monk shook his head. "You asked to live, not for your sake, but for what you thought was justice. That is why it burns you slower. It still listens." He said nothing. When morning came, the monk was gone. Only a circle of ash remained where the fire had been. In the center, a charm of silver old faith, the kind worn by men who had nothing but mud and hope. He took it, hung it next to the bone charm already seared into his chest. Then he walked on, limping, the wind rising behind him. The bridge did not collapse, but it would not be there when he returned. Some paths are crossed only once. Chapter 7. The Corpse That Sang. There were valleys where the wind never died, where it whistled through standing stones and carried with it the taste of turned soil and old rot. He came to one such valley long after the last cart had fled, long after the church bells had melted under siege of thunder. The village was called Meerwick, though its name had begun to fade from the maps. The living no longer spoke of it. Only the dead did. He knew this before he crossed the threshold, heard it in the stillness between birdsong, felt it in the rhythm of the earth. The village stood unburnt, untouched, doors open as if waiting for someone to return. And in each house he passed, there were bodies, not rotting, not stiff, arranged, dressed in festival garb, seated at hearths or tables, faces pale but peaceful. One held a lute, another held hands with a child. Each mouth was slightly open, and each one was humming. The sound was faint at first, a single note, threaded from house to house, weaving through alleys and chimneys, drawn like breath from lips long still. It was not discordant. It was beautiful. That was what made it wrong. He did not speak, did not draw steel, not yet. The curse in his chest shivered, uncertain. He walked to the center of town, where the well had long since dried, and the church loomed in silence. There, beneath the bell tower, stood a man in robes of woven ash, back turned, arms raised, conducting. The corpses sang louder. "What have you done?" the swordsman asked. The robed man turned slowly. His face was thin, eyes bloodless, mouth too wide. Yet he smiled as if meeting an old friend. "Only listened," he said. "They remembered the songs. I gave them the key." The melody surged, windows vibrated. Teeth chattered in skulls that should not have held breath. The swordsman staggered. Blood welled in his ears. The necromancer stepped forward. "You, though, you carry a deeper note, a dissonance. You were made to be sung." The swordsman drew no closer. The curse cawed within him. His limbs ached. His heart fluttered in a rhythmic pain. He could feel his body beginning to split at the seams. "Why this?" he asked. "Why make puppets of peace?" "Because they loved these songs," the necromancer whispered. "Because no one else would remember them." And then he raised his hand, and the dead stood. They moved not like men but like dancers, graceful, practiced in patterns etched into their bones. They did not weep, they did not scream, but they moved toward him, arms wide, voices lifting into a harmony that scraped the edges of reason. He whispered the word, not the full utterance, just a fragment, just enough to burn a path. Light split the air. Salt crystallized in the dirt. The dead faltered, but did not fall. They could not. The necromancer had rooted them too deep. Every movement they made pulled at him. He was their chorus, their root chord. To destroy them would mean facing the whole. So he ran, through the alleys, through the rain of ash, to the church where the source waited beneath. The catacombs were vast. He had to crawl at times, fingers raw against stone. But the song followed him, even there, especially there. And at the deepest hollow, he found the heart of it. A girl, young, barely more than a child. Suspended in a cage of bone, humming through torn lips, eyes stitched shut. A conduit. He did not ask who she was. He knew. He drew the charm from his chest, pressed it to the cage, and spoke the word again. Fully this time. The light did not burn. It screamed. Stone liquefied, air fractured. The cage collapsed. The girl fell. He caught her, though his arms broke under the weight. Blood poured from his nose, his ears. The curse turned against him, and he bit through his own tongue to hold it down. But the song ended. Above, the corpses fell. The necromancer shrieked, voice unraveling. When the swordsman emerged, carrying the girl in his arms, the man was gone. Only robes remained, folded as if in prayer. He left the girl at the threshold of a convent 3 days west, did not wait for thanks, did not speak, only stumbled into the dusk, coughing black onto the road. He could not stop shaking. They had seen what he did in Blackmere when the ash wolves came. They had seen what it cost him. The valley below was silent. No birds, no flies. Only the creak of bone chimes swaying in windless air. They had been made from real bones, stripped of tendon, etched with names no one now bore. Fields that once held barley were stripped to grey. The trees had withered. Their roots curled upward, as if rejecting the ground. In the orchard's center rose the kiln, not of brick, but of spine and stone, 30 feet high. Fed by demons who moved like shepherds, collecting femurs, skulls, and fingerbones in woven baskets. They moved without haste, without cruelty, as if tending a sacred fire. The villagers began to cry. He did not. "We run," someone whispered. He shook his head. "We go through." The demons did not notice them at first, too busy sorting, too slow to understand that prey could draw steel. They reached the first line by the time the alarm sounded, not a horn, but a low bell struck by a child-sized figure with a hollow face. The ground groaned. The orchard stirred. The villagers fought like cornered dogs, sloppy, furious. Many died. He did not. He moved cleanly, with purpose. When the demons grew too thick, he whispered the word, only a sliver. But it carved through 6 in an instant. They burned like wax. The others pulled back, terrified, of the fire, of him. But one did not. A woman, thin, hard-eyed, wielding a butcher's hook and a torch. She stood beside him as they reached the kiln. "You're not what you were," she said. "You're falling apart." He nodded. There was no use in lying. "Then stop using it." "I can't." "You can. You choose not to." He turned to her, face pale, lips cracked. "They will die. If I stop, they die." She stared at him, then at the kiln, where the bones glowed red with hidden fire. "Maybe they will anyway, but you'll go first, and no one will remember why." He said nothing. They stormed the kiln. He did not use the word again, not there, not for the final climb. Flesh split from his hand when he drove his sword into the altar atop the heap. Blood poured freely. Real blood, red and honest. The fire inside the kiln guttered. The bone chimes fell silent. When they emerged, fewer than half remained. She did not thank him. She only turned away and said, "You want to die fast. We want to live slow. That's the difference." He watched them go, did not follow. At the orchard's edge, he sat beneath a tree that bore no fruit, only teeth. He slept, and dreamed again of the tower. Chapter 9. The Tower Without Doors. The dream became map. He followed it through fog and ruin, across lands where names had worn away, where stone no longer kept memory, and rivers ran dry from forgetting. No one joined him. No inn offered rest. No horse would carry him near. The land itself recoiled. And then he saw it. The tower rose from dead hills like a spine of the world. No mortar, no banners, no path. Its surface shimmered with something not wholly light, not wholly matter. The base offered no entrance, no crack, no threshold. It did not want to be entered. He made camp beside it, not to sleep, but to bleed. The curse had grown restless. The more he neared the truth, the louder it whispered. Old pain echoed in his bones. His fingernails blackened. His breath caught with every hour. Yet he did not call the power. Not here, not yet. He traced the surface with bare hands. It pulsed. He felt it recognize him. When he whispered the word, the tower replied. Not in voice, in absence. He woke inside it. Stone surrounded him on all sides, smooth and glistening like marrow. No light, no seams, but air. Breathable, measured. The curse was silent. Not gone, but contained. He was where it had been made. He walked. Hours passed, or none. The halls wound in spirals that bent space, gravity, thought. Sometimes he saw himself ahead, sometimes behind. His shadow split. His memories flickered. And then the walls opened, and he stood in a chamber filled with books that had never been written. They hummed. One floated down. He opened it, and saw himself. Not as man, not as memory, as a thing of smoke and hunger, a shape that burned others not out of vengeance, but out of design. His face held no mercy, no restraint. He did not whisper the word. He was the word. He dropped the book. It closed itself. The room changed, became something else. A firelit cell. A man in crimson robes waited there, sitting cross-legged atop a slab of glass. His face was turned away. "You were always meant to return," the man said. "I was never meant to leave. You did more than leave," you asked. The swordsman stepped forward. "What did I trade?" The man turned, and it was his face, not mirrored, not stolen, older, wiser, wretched. "You gave up your death," the warlock said, "and bought time with other people's endings." He fell to his knees. "You are not cursed. You are paid." The chamber vanished. The tower wept. He lay on stone, salt drying on his skin. The door had never been locked. He had always known the way in. No birds circled the tower's pale silk strung between spires. He stepped through the last arch with bones grinding in their sockets, heart a failing bellows, limbs trailing smoke. And there he found it, not a man, not anymore. It hung above a dais of petrified tongues, suspended by nothing, robed in a garment of skin not its own. No face remained, only a hollow of bone swirling with black embers. Yet when it spoke, he knew the voice. You have come to beg." He stood tall, though his spine screamed. "I have come to end it." The warlock laughed. "Not mockery, welcome. You will not. You are it." It drifted lower. Feet did not touch stone. Its limbs were elongated, fingers like blades folded in prayer. "You think yourself broken. You are unfinished. What you call pain is only growth. You ruined me. You chose me. You carved your name in my circle, with blood, with want." He staggered, the weight of the memory returning. Not shown, not told. Felt. A night in a field of burned grain, a whisper into open sky, and fire answering. "I didn't know. You knew. Not in words. In need. You begged to be spared. You begged to matter." The swordsman dropped to one knee. "Then I was a coward." "No," the warlock said. "You were honest. You wanted to live long enough to change something, but change takes more than life. It takes fire." The tower shuddered. From the walls came cries, not of the dead, but of the not yet dead, those he had burned, those saved in ruin. Echoes, footsteps. He rose. "You want me to become you? You will." The fire forgets faces. Only the heat remains. He drew his sword. "Then I burn you first." The warlock opened its arms. "You cannot strike me. You would strike yourself. I am what you will become." He charged. The blow passed through. The pain did not. He fell back, bleeding from the eyes, the curse surging in rebellion. His veins boiled, his mind split. The warlock stepped forward. "You are not ready. You still hold to the idea of penance. There is no debt. There is only fire." And then it turned, walked back to the altar, lifted its arms once more. "But you will return, when the pain becomes purpose, when you cease to resist." He crawled away, down the stair, into dark. Every step tore him further, but he did not stop. He would not return, unless it was with the flame bound to his will. Chapter 11, The Pact, Unwritten. He awoke in the ruins of a place he had never seen but somehow remembered, a garden long dead, vines petrified mid-climb, pools dried to salt, statues worn faceless by years of wind. He lay there for 3 days, fevered, silent. The curse did not speak. It watched. When at last he stood, the sword was gone. Only the scabbard remained, torn and blackened. He wrapped it across his back and warped. The monk found him on the 7th day, still robed, still masked, but this time he knelt. "You saw him." The swordsman nodded. "You survived." "Barely." "That is enough." The monk helped him walk, fed him root broth and ash bread, said nothing more until the swordsman finally asked, "Can it be broken?" The monk sat across the fire, drew a circle in the dirt. "No, but it can be rewritten." "How?" "Not by word, not by steel." "Then by what?" The monk placed his hand over the circle and smeared it into mud. "By refusal." He did not understand, not at first. But the monk taught him, slowly, carefully, how to redirect the flame inward, how to silence the hunger without denying its shape, how to carry it, not as a weapon, but as a weight. The days blurred, each moment another lesson in pain, in patience, in being, not for battle, not for glory, but for balance. And when the final night came, the monk gave him a new blade, not forged, grown, from ironwood and bone, unbreakable, unmarked. He will not recognize it, nor you. That is the point. The swordsman bowed. "You are not the man who asked. You are the man who answers." He left at dawn. No flames followed, only wind, only silence. Chapter 12, The Fire That Walks. He returned in twilight, not to a fortress nor a throne, but to the hollow crown of the world. The tower stood as it always had, untouched by storm, unweathered by time. Yet it felt smaller now, diminished, not in size, but in command. He did not knock, he walked. The stones opened for him, the spiral welcomed him, the walls did not shift. No illusions waited, they knew what he had become. At the summit, the warlock waited, arms spread as if greeting kin. "So," the voice echoed, "you return as promised." The swordsman did not speak. "And you bring nothing, no curse on your tongue, no flames behind your eyes." He stepped forward. "Because I am no longer yours." The warlock laughed. The chamber shook. "You cannot kill me, you are me." He unsheathed the new blade. The warlock froze. "What is that?" The answer. The warlock lunged, robes shivering into wings of ash. The chamber darkened, veins of flame splitting the stone. Screams clawed from the walls. But the swordsman did not call the curse. He fought with breath, with bone, with choice. The blade cut not through flesh, but through claim. Every blow unmade a bond, shattered a link in the chain he had once forged with blood. The warlock roared, wept, shrieked names not spoken in ages. "You will become nothing," he struck. The final blow did not draw blood. It drew silence. The warlock fell, cloak empty, hollow chest collapsing into dust. No body, no scream. Only the smell of rain before lightning. The tower cracked. He walked from its heart as it collapsed behind him, each stone falling not with thunder, but with breath, as if a great beast had finally exhaled. At the edge of the world he stood, sky above, ruin behind. The curse gone, not lifted. Spent, he collapsed, but rose again. A man, only that. He left the sword at the cliff's edge, where wind could find it, where fire could forget it, and walked on. No name, no curse, only will, and the path ahead.